Morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily on the last day of 2021. We made it! Okay, but then one of the things that everyone talks about from time to time is, okay, so this is the end of the year, and of course, everywhere is supposed to be, hunky-dory. But then when you find yourself, if you find yourself on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway this morning, well, is it the major highway itself? Or maybe the part between the Secretariat and Kara Bridge, you'll find that a section of the road was closed. I don't know if it's open now, but at the time I was coming to the office, it was closed. Maybe it's still closed now. I'm pretty sure that, you get more on that. What we understand was that a truck broke down along the way and literally blocked the entire road, such that the U-turn before Cornell, station along the expressway, inward Lagos, was the place where people had to be moved, directed to the other side. So everyone was using just one lane, and those who were on this lane, on the in inter-roads, had to use the Estates Road, to get back on that highway. But that's that about that. So at least now you know. Before you go out, just you may want to check with your traffic advisories, whichever one that you use. Now, talking about roads, one of the things that the NDDC was set up to do was to improve infrastructure in the Niger Delta area. And we've had several conversations around funding of Niger Delta development projects through the NDDC. And I think it was in this administration that decided that, we're going to have to look into the books of NDDC. So a forensic audit was ordered by the president. Let's listen to Mr. President on that.
Common Commission needs to demonstrate that it can achieve the objectives it was conceived for and made its impact felt all over the Niger Delta region. The lives of the people of the Niger Delta could be so much better if the funding received by this commission since its inception in billions of naira over the last 20 years have been judicially deployed in service of the people. The serial abuse, lack of delivery, and what had become an entrenched institutional decay was the reason why I called for the forensic audit. Therefore, going forward, we shall ensure every recoverable kobo is recovered for use in service of the people of this region, and those found culpable shall face the law. Consequently, I want to use the opportunity of this commissioning to direct all statutory contributors to the NDDC to remit all outstanding funds to the Commission, and to ensure this is done transparently and according to laid down procedure and process. To the management of the institution, I recognize your efforts in breathing life back into this project, which could easily have become one of the many moribund projects that dot the landscape of the region. I expect more of these reclamation projects as we go into the new year. This is what we owe as a duty to Nigerians.
Well, just before we take a look at the papers, you listen to Mr. President there. He said, every recoverable cover. Please underline the word recoverable. Sorry, my journalism is kicking in. Every recoverable kobo will be recovered. The question then is, what's going to happen to the people who have made it unrecoverable until now? Well, the forensic audit has been ordered, and how far so far with that? I guess we'll wait to see. So Everyone is concerned that development is not happening at the pace it ought to in the Niger Delta, given that the Niger Delta produces a significant chunk of Nigeria's resources, especially from oil. Don't also forget that there's been efforts by this same government and previous governments as well, but by this one in particular, to clean up Ogoni area so that life can be better for the people. At least make life safe and habitable and economically empowering for them. I guess one will only have to wait and see exactly what is going to come out of this comment that Mr. President has made, which was at the virtual commissioning of the NDDC prototype hostel at the University of Uyo in Akwa Ibom State. So he has pledged to prosecute those found culpable in accordance with the law, and that's concerning the forensic audit that he ordered. The question then is, how far so far, and when is that going to be? There are so many questions around the NDDC, as well as such similar special intervention funds, special development interventions that dot the landscape of Nigeria. We can only wait and see. At least now we know that someone knows what's happening, what's going to happen to those people, and what is going to be the deterrence to ensure that that does not happen again. I guess we'll wait to see. But that's the lead story of the Nigerian Tribune as well this morning. NDDC forensic audit. Every kobo will be recovered. That's ascribed to the president, and the story you'll find on page 2 of the paper this morning, and so many other stories on the front page of the paper. You also find this one, path leaders should follow. That's right under the picture collage you see on the front page, 2021 in perspective. Past leaders should follow in 2022. Fonagoro, Olajide, Amechi, Unongo, others speak. You find the details of that on the front page of the paper this morning. And right above the nameplate, there is a clarion call. Maize scarcity looms. Bandits killed 60 farmers in Katsina in 2021. That story is ascribed to an association. Find out which one it is on page 7 of the paper. Says its members won't participate in January dry season farming. Story is there on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. And right beside that one, Auditor General's Office uncovers over 9.42 billion naira alleged illegal expenditure by National Assembly management. Did I hear uh-oh somewhere? Well, queries reps over 1.595 billion naira car loan, 2.2 billion naira running costs. Once CNA over non-remittance of 1.718 billion naira VAT and withholding tax and others. Find the story on page 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. You talk about following the money. There are those who have been complaining about the fact that no one really knows what the purse of the National Assembly looks like. I guess the Auditor General's office has an idea. The details you find on page 3. On the back page of Nigerian Tribune is sports. Osimhen withdraws from AFCON, tests positive for COVID-19. Onyekuru replaces him. A number of other stories you find on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune and on the back page as well. Let's flip to the Vanguard newspaper this morning, and this is what you have. That's it right there. Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Why we injected direct primary clause. That's ascribed to the Speaker of the House. Stories on page 5. Says National Assembly may remove clause, pass bill after recess. Story continues on the inside pages. Other writers, National Assembly presidency should go back to drawing board, says ex-ACF scribe Anthony Sonny. Cut short your vacation, return to work. PDP tasks National Assembly. Baja's position, not surprising, ascribed to Northern Elders and Ohanese. 9th National Assembly rubber stamp, Pandef says. Prosperity will judge National Assembly, Arewa youths, and National Assembly may lose goodwill of Nigerians. That's ascribed to CAN and CNG. The details you find on page 5 of the paper this morning. And right under the picture you see on the front page, Buhari's top 100 achievements in 2021 by Lai Mohammed. That you will find on page 26 of the paper this morning. And a number of other stories you'll find quite interesting on the front page of the paper. On the back page is sports. Vanguard Sports, Pesario's appointment divides NFF. The details continue on the inside pages and a number of other stories on the front page of the paper this morning. And Mr. and Mrs. very quickly, Mrs. telling Mr., I'm going to be a better wife in the new year. What about you? Mr. backing Mrs. says, it's easy for women to make such resolution. Men's resolutions depend on the economy. Yes or yes? Well, the answer, okay, let me ask her. Marco, good morning. What do you think of that?
Of the year, and Mrs.'s resolution is very clear. I do not know why that of Mr. has to be dependent on the economy. So, what? How the economy determines whether or not you'll be a good person in the new year? I hope not. I hope that answer is a no. That regardless of whatever the new year throws at you, you're determined to be a better person. And that's how it should be. Well, I wasn't going to leave you alone today, and I'm going to be doing Daily Trust right now. They are determining how they fared in 2021 and are bringing to you the stories which made impact. So you have this 2021, our big stories that made impact. That's how they've chosen to end this beautiful year, 2021. It's been a challenging year, nonetheless. This is how Daily Trust is choosing to celebrate this day, or should I say mark this day. And they have quite a list from January, March. They had 2 stories in March which they considered made impact. April was a good month. They had 3 stories there at least. And that was the month I was born. Perhaps no surprise. We're impact makers. Well, and they also have one in June, August, September, or 2 in September, and of course in November as well. So you might want to take a look at the stories which Daily Trust considered made impact, and if you like, you can make a list of by yourself the stories which you felt made impact on either your favorite channels TV or of course your favorite dailies, your favorite daily newspaper as well. You have the story on page 5. Yes, they are making a story out of it. Page 5 will give you details of their big stories which made impact. It is a good time to actually take stock. And look at this, over 22,000 terrorists surrendered, 1,000 killed in 2021. That's from federal government. Kaduna-Kano Rail project must be completed 2023. That's according to Minister, I imagine that's the Minister of Transport, but don't take my word for it. Flip to page 7 and see which minister is speaking. You have a number of other stories here. How more domestic investors return to equities in 2021. So we might be seeing the impact on the stock market with increased investment by domestic investors. NDDC audit will recover every kobo, prosecute culprits. That's from the president. I was fascinated with that story. Our senior officers conniving with oil thieves. That's from Navy. Well, yesterday there was a decoration ceremony across the 3 arms of the Nigerian military, the Nigerian Army, Navy, and Air Force. A sight to behold. I mean, a time when family members celebrate with their loved ones who have been promoted to really enviable heights within the Nigerian military. I imagine that this is where this has come from. But as I said earlier, do not take my word for it. Flip to page 4 to see that this is a really indicting comment. Our senior officers conniving with oil thieves. That's from the Navy. Let's leave it there for the Daily Trust newspapers.
And I'll agree with you, Mark, but it shouldn't just stop at being a statement. It's something that really should be probed sincerely. Well, talking about probing, look at the front page of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. NDDC forensic audit. Buhari to prosecute officials indicted for financial misappropriation. That story is on page 2. Promises to recover every recoverable cover. That word again, recoverable. What does that mean? That some are not recoverable? I don't know. Anyway, the details on page 2. Orders remittance of all outstanding funds to commission. And right above the nameplate, Southeast has right to take shot at presidency. That's ascribed to Governor Ikpeazu. Find the details of that on the inside pages, page 2 to be precise. That's the Nigerian News Direct this morning.
On the front page of Leadership Friday, as they take Friday as the start of their weekend, and so they have a very interesting front page for you. Look at what they're putting together. Momentous events that shaped year 2021. Yes, basically more or less like a summary of news this year. Momentous events that shaped year 2021. Many sides of a difficult, eventful year. Nigerians take stock. So you have the pictures there, and I'm sure they will easily bring to mind a few of the events. Nigeria lost a Chief of Army Staff. Nnamdi Kanu was rearrested. There was some controversy around Shekau. I think it was confirmed that he is eventually dead for good. You also have the controversy with CSP Abba Kyari and Hush Puppy. You saw TB Joshua passed on this year. A few pictures which, okay, yeah, jailbreaks, quite a number of jailbreaks, students abductions, and some good news. Our Paralympic team came back with some gold. Building collapse in Ikoyi, Lagos, taking the lives of many people. Some obituaries, Sound Sultan there, who passed on owing to cancer. Of course, that young man, a young boy, Sylvester, who lost his life owing to an act of bullying, which is still under investigation, by the way. So we hope that 2022 will bring conclusivity to the investigations that have surrounded, to the events that surrounded his passing. And of course, Anambra governorship elections, which were conducted and saw Chukwuma Soludo emerge as winner. That's also there on the front page. So quite a number of stories. A very nice summary for you on the front page of Leadership Friday. Pick up a copy if you want to. I think these sort of papers are the types you keep for the year, you know, where you buy a daily on the 31st of every year, 31st of December of that year. You basically can say, if I didn't buy any paper at all, at least I can keep this one. It will give me an idea of what transpired that year. So please do go out and pick up a copy of today's dailies. You never know what you'll be storing up for your children, what treasure trove that will be in future. Look at this one. CSO's alleged fresh plot against Electoral Act Amendment Bill. That is also on the front page of the paper. Federal government scores PMB high on economy, security in 2021. So they're scoring themselves before you do. Be ruthless with terrorists, bandits, coerce orders generals. That is on the front page. And foremost medical director Dati Ahmed dies at 83. That's where we leave it for Leadership Friday.
Look at the Guardian newspaper this morning. It's a very sad one there about the demise of Dati Ahmed. The Guardian newspaper has this one on its front page. 4 years on, Nigeria lags behind in open skies. $1.3 billion revenue agenda. That story continues on the inside pages. FG operators divided on implementation strategy and prospects. Local airlines lack governance. Local airlines lack corporate governance and cooperation to compete. That's ascribed to experts. Find the details. Continue on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Right under the picture you see there, Doubts over FG's capacity to remove fuel subsidy as election nears. Anyway, I don't know. I don't even know what to make of that. But that's what you have there. The story is on the inside pages of the paper. The number of other stories right under the nameplate. FG military combs Lake Chad, kills 22 terrorists, loses 6 troops. Oh dear. Audit report indicts National Assembly over 9 billion naira unexplained expenditure. You find unexplained in inverted commas there. And Boko Haram destroys 1 million public-private buildings in Borno. Find out who said that on page 6 of the paper. And why Igbo should be president in 2023. The details ascribed to Governor Ikpeazu is on the inside pages of the Guardian newspaper this morning.
Well, Aya, let's take a look at what's on the front page of New Telegraph for our viewers this morning. Look at this. End insecurity at all costs. That's the lead story. Defense chief tells officers at all costs. And indeed, that's what Nigerians desire as we go into 2022. Listening to him last night, he said that if the men and officers thought that 2021 was a challenging year, they should wait until they see 2022. Nonetheless, this is his charge to them. End insecurity at all costs. Says 2022 will be more challenging. I thought I was the only one who heard that. So, yes, they have that reported here. Says 2022 will be more challenging. 23,671 terrorists surrendered. 1,929 neutralized in 2021. That's from the federal government. Police, they say, we arrested over 9,000 criminal suspects, prosecuted 20,000 cases in court this year. Buhari has performed well in security economy. That's from Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed. Pages 2, 3, and 4 will give you details. And look at this electoral bill. Buhari has good intentions. NAS may veto, remove clauses. That's from Bajabiamila as reps move to ban public servants' children from foreign studies. Yeah, you read right. Reps move to ban public servants' children from foreign studies. Public servants, by the way, includes all political office holders. So that's not just civil servants. That is everyone who is in public office. So that's going to be, did I say an earth shaker or a table shaker? We don't know how young people say it these days. Page 4 will give you details. Kaigama to federal government dialogue with separatist agitators. It's a page 3 read for you. You also have a number of other stories just beneath the nameplate, but let's go up on top of the nameplate. Nigeria accounts for 28% of tech education in Africa as startups generate $3.46 million in 1 year. Low forex demand boosts Naira on parallel market. That story is on page 25 for you. Let's leave it there for New Telegraph.
Well, one could go on some of those stories that you highlighted, Malpo, especially that part about public servants' children from foreign studies. Does that include those who have been in there before getting into service? Well, anyway, it's not my call. Well, we have to leave it at that for the papers for now. We're back to take on the issues for the day in a moment. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Today we want to take a look at infrastructure developments in Nigeria, especially in the year 2021. Of course, a good number of us will reference the fact that the federal government has, especially from the very beginning of the year, have talked over and over again about infrastructure development, infrastructure deficit, and all of that. And one wonders exactly what is going to happen. What has happened? What's your assessment of what has happened? Well, Malcolm did say that there are some papers that are keepers. Maybe this series that we are also doing, you may want to keep them. We have three people joining us this morning to look at these issues. Balale Edward is a road safety advocate, especially she has a special interest, especially in child safety on the roads. Balale Edward, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
We also have Professor of Energy and Electricity Law in the University of Lagos, Professor Yemi Oke. He joins us here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
As well as Ayobami Oyalawo, who is a political economist, joins us virtually from Lekki. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, if you don't mind, let me start with you, Mr. Oyalawo. Perhaps there is a need to understand generally, when we talk about infrastructure, what are the components? Many people would probably assume that when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about maybe just the physical infrastructure, just the roads. Give us an understanding. When we talk about infrastructure gap, infrastructure deficits, infrastructure development in Nigeria, what are we talking about?
Well, good morning once again, Ayo, my namesake. When we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about a whole lot of things. We're talking about, yes, the roads are a huge component of infrastructure, but we also look at some other things like the rail, the ports, the housing, as it were, and also you talk about some other infrastructure like electricity, the dams, it's a whole gamut of the things that makes life easier for people to live so that you know that you're living in a modern world. I mean, what differentiates us today from those people who lived in like 200-300 years back was infrastructure, as in you can wake up now and decide you want to go to London and you spend 6 hours in the air and you're in London. But before, maybe you have to be 3 hours on the, 3 weeks or longer on the sea to go there. If you want to go to Kano from Lagos right now, you could fly 2 hours, you're in Kano, which you cannot do some years and years back. So those are the things that differentiate, or the things to make us live more pleasant lives. Electricity, road, railway, telephones, and so many other things that make up what you call the infrastructure that makes up a country or a nation.
Well, thank you. Prof, let me come to you. One of the I just needed to lay that foundation so that people know that when we're talking about infrastructure, it's not just roads we're talking about. And your own specialty is, special interest is in energy and electricity law. In terms of development in the energy sector in Nigeria, what would be your assessment of how far we've gone?
Thank you very much. I'm going to break it into three. When we talk of infrastructure, particularizing that to energy and electricity, which is my passion, then we look at accessibility, affordability, and the sustainability of it. Let's just take a cue from what you have in here. You just read, Nigerians paid 565 billion naira for electricity in 9 months. That's just a conservative figure. How much have we paid as Nigerians for diesel and gas and petrol consumption to augment electricity? How much did we spend as Nigerians to fuel our cars? A whole lot of issues. So it's not affordable. It's also not sustainable because we have not even expanded the net. We really need to expand it so that we have options. Then let me now go back to the other component of it. I think I was called the government like some fault. Of course, I'm not a difficult lecturer when it comes to grading anyway. I was called government like 55% because of one major thing. Because several regimes, several governments have had difficulties pulling through with the petroleum industry bill then. But this government has succeeded in giving us Petroleum Industry Act. And so much has been happening in the industry. I've been doing training upon training local and elsewhere on what it is. What are the things we need to do to get it right with the Petroleum Industry Act? It's a very comprehensive piece of legislation. If we could, and I hope we will, be able to implement just 45% of essential provisions of the Act, then we'll start itching to the right direction in terms of energy now, both because that's the first time we'll have gas being regulated in Nigeria and a whole lot of things. So on that, but on the other component of energy, still a long way for us to go.
Okay, well, at least 55% sounds like a pass mark to me. But
that's for PIB, not on electricity. Okay. Because with the PIB, then we can start to get things
done. To the other details. You are actually a difficult lecturer at giving your marks. But let me come to you, Ms. Edwards. Road safety is something you have advocated over time. Now, we're talking about infrastructure development, talking about roads. The report you saw earlier talked about pockets of roads in the nation that have received government's attention. And there are those who are still asking for more. There are those who have used the roads that government has, the federal government in particular, has touched, will be glad. Those who have used roads in the areas, in their states, which the state governments have also intervened, will be glad. But then there is still quite a significant gap. In your assessment in 2021, how well did we fare in terms of road infrastructure?
Good question. $100 million question you've asked there. As a road safety advocate, I mean, there's nothing we can achieve when it comes to safety on the road without making sure that our roads are in good and perfect condition. And looking at 2021, 365 days now, I would say for a fact that we are not there yet. There's still so much to be done. The report what we have says that we have 195,000 kilometers of roads that are paved in Nigeria, which I think is still a very far cry from what we're looking at if we must reduce mortality on our roads. Of course, road constitutes a lot of, it constitutes to the wellness of every Nigerian. It constitutes to people arriving at the destination safely. So I must say that a whole lot of roads are still in a very deplorable condition, and government still have a lot to do. And we're looking forward to a 2022 whereby they will deliver some of these roads that have been promised. We've been told that we have about 21 roads that are going to be constructed in 2021. And with the private funding that has also come on board, we hope to see that more roads are being done. But for to look at the standard that United Nations has put forth, we're still a far cry. But we're hopeful that 2022 will be a better one.
If you don't mind me, taking you on further on that, Professor Oke mentioned just a little while ago about sustainability in the energy sector. In terms of sustainability of the roads, there is a responsibility for government at various levels, but then there is a responsibility for the people as well.
Absolutely.
In terms of engaging people to ensure that the needful is done in that regard, how well would you say we have fared?
Wow, really, really bad. The situation is bad out there because I don't know what to call it. Should I say that it's negligence, ignorance, or stupidity? Roads are not being well used. You see, I mean, I can use Lagos State for an example where I live. Lagos State is doing quite a lot of infrastructural developments, making sure that we have sidewalks. And what do you see people do to the sidewalks, on the sidewalks? They sell the merchandise things on those sidewalks. And people can't go on the ramp. People can't walk safely. Pedestrian, the available pedestrian route has also been taken over by people. And you begin to wonder that, is it that we do not know the right thing to do, or we're just ignorant, or we're just so wicked that we do not like to take care of the things that have been put in place? But I must say that we can't stop educating. Education, advocate and inform. You can't go wrong when you inform. We may just assume that people know how to use this infrastructure, meanwhile they don't. So I must say that 2022, a lot of advocacy and information and education must be put in place.
Well, let's stay on that a little, Mr. Oyalowo. So it is one thing for governments at various levels to, make these things available. It's another thing altogether for the people to take ownership of them. And so the question then would be, what has been missing so far by way of engaging people to make sure that the infrastructure they are provided are used by them sustainably?
Well, I can't answer that for government because I honestly don't know what their plans are for engagement. However, to take it from what the lady just said, people need to be a bit more responsible in the way we use infrastructure. I was driving between Lagos to Ibadan to Ogbomoso just this week, and I saw a lot of things on the road that shocks me. Some trucks were overloaded to the point that even without using the way bridge, just me sitting there in my car, I could see that these are carrying overloaded materials, so that the weight of those trucks on the road are generally going to destroy the road within a short period of time, which means if the road was built to last for 10 years before it is upgraded again, it won't last that 10 years. Same way I saw vehicles, smaller cars, smaller minivans and buses overloading themselves with goods. I even saw one petrol tanker that was coming from Ibadan to Lagos, loaded with a lot of, I don't know what are in those bags. So these are some of the challenges. And like she also mentioned about the people using sidewalk, you can also refer to people who, rather than use the pedestrian bridge, would rather cross the road and put their lives at risk. You can also talk about people who steal infrastructure on the road, and I mean there are side railings on bridges. Some people just go there and remove them. There are covers for manholes, for gutters and drainages, and some people just make it their businesses to steal this infrastructure, thereby defacing and making life difficult for the rest of us normal human beings. So those are challenges, because you can sit here every day and abuse the government for not doing what they should do. But when government has done what they should do, will it be okay for human beings not to act the way human beings should act? Because I honestly don't know how else we need to educate people to know that to go and take railings from the bridge, remove a manhole cover is a normal thing. I don't see anywhere in the world that is normal. So those are the challenges, because government will naturally be spoken to do what it should do. But human beings need to also behave the way human beings should behave, so that we all will enjoy this infrastructure. Like the professor in your studio just said, sustainability is a part of infrastructural development. If you build things and people destroy it, I see people get angry. Today you come and burn tires on the road. The moment tires are burned on the roads, any road, just observe it. When you burn a tire or whatever you do when you are angry or you say you are protesting, the moment it rains the next time, that part of the road becomes riddled with potholes. So these are some of the challenges with infrastructural development. Human interference, human destruction. We as people need to do better. Every day we compare ourselves to some other countries, but people in those countries don't behave the way we behave. So we need to behave the way human beings should behave, so that we will have longer and more sustainable development in terms of infrastructural development.
Well, let me come to you, Prof. Let's just move away from that for a bit. But it is still related. For instance, earlier in the year, we heard that it was actually the Vice President that reaffirmed the federal government's plan to start the 15 trillion naira infrastructural corporation of Nigeria, Infraco. And of course, it will be funded by CBN, AFC, NSIA, and other institutions like that. A public-private partnership such as Infraco will definitely depend on the use or abuse of people to ensure the sustainability or otherwise of it. Yeah, right. So in terms of some of the issues that have been raised by your co-panelists and the intervention of Infraco, what are the hopes of sustainability?
Thank you very much, Shayo. Again, I appreciate you for that important question. Infraco, well-conceived idea, and it's nothing new. Though now Infraco attempts to do it at a relatively larger scale. But we've had public-private partnership before. The MM2 is a partnership that we can reference. Then the Lekki Toll Gate is another private-public partnership that we can reference. The NLNG, Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas, is a kind of private-public partnership that has worked. The current structure of the Nigerian railway, we now have this system now coming back on stream. It's a good example of private-public partnership that can work. Then the question is this, just as other members of the panelists mentioned, each time people apply the rail station, the question is, oh, this is good, but can we sustain it? The question of sustainability is really not for government. Infrastructure is there. We should own the process. No, when they were talking, something kept recurring when she was talking about attitude of Nigerians. Each time a car is in motion and somebody lowers his glass or a glass to throw empty cans or bottles of water, I was like, my goodness. Oh, government should now also be trailing them for doing that. So that is
there are those, my apologies. There are those who reference that in Singapore, you can't do that in Singapore.
You can't do that. You can't do that in Ghana. You can't do that in any decent country. The thought of you drinking your pure water or bottled water or Coca-Cola or whatever, right while you are speeding off, you lower your glass, you drop it. The commercial vehicles, you see people throwing cans like this flying on the road. Then it rains. Then the first thing that happens is the drainages are blocked. Then the water flows on the road. Then the roads are damaged. Then you say, now, of course, it's public funds. They will keep, elsewhere. If a road is well constructed, you probably will not need to reconstruct in 50 years. So you now divert public funds to creating or establishing more roads or other infrastructure. But if it's constructed and it's not maintained, it's not sustained, it's damaged, then government will have to continue maintaining or building another, or reconstructing. That is it. Go to the toilet facilities at the airport when it was really refurbished. Go there now. We have this attitude of not owning a public asset. And there's the Nigerian thing that we also need to get done with. On our home part, we go elsewhere. You don't even think of doing those. You can't do it. The system is self-sustaining. There's an inbuilt self-responsibility mechanism that you can't just even think of it. Because it's your own asset. It's a public asset for public good.
Perhaps that information needs to be drilled down to people. But look at Infraco's intervention with regard to the energy sector, your own specialty.
Yeah.
Do you see any anything significantly been done? You talked about some things. You said, for as far as the PIA law is concerned, government was a little over average. But then you said, in other sectors of the energy, space, you can't really say that. What did we miss in the year 2021?
We missed quite a lot. The PIA should have been a law to drive the system like for 20 years. We've always had gas. Now we're talking of gas to power because really we don't want to rely too much on hydro to generate electricity. But we've left gas undeveloped for decades. We've left gas financing unattended to for decades. Quite frankly, it is the PIB that regulates gas for the first time. Gas as a component of the energy sector was never regulated. You'll be wondering that gas was not regulated.
Is that why the prices of gas is left to international space?
No, gas is an international commodity, and that's one of the reasons why we're having a bit of challenges in the power sector. We want to power through gas, essentially. Now, we're doing a lot now to use those associated and unassociated gas for also the power sector. Once gas is produced, it's an international market. It's sold abroad at internationally competitive
There are
rates.
those who are wondering, wait a minute.
So now, you're telling me to produce my gas, somebody's ready to buy it at $5, and then I should sell to the general system at 100 naira so that you can use it to power electricity. It's not going to make economic sense.
Well, you are talking about the one to power electricity. People are talking about the one they use at home.
The way we're going, as I said, we look at trends. Development, technology will throw up options and alternatives. And we're getting there. Okay. You see, most homes now, people think we started with inverters. People now use solar panels, and we're improving the efficiency of those. Then we're going to have local manpower in that regard. We're now going to see Nigerians producing batteries that are the size of this building that can power a whole city. Elsewhere in India, in Germany, people don't even talk about all those small batteries are now mega batteries now, like solar-enabled battery that can power a whole. So, Nigerians, in terms of technology, I think we're catching up. Okay. She mentioned a lot of all those hubs now. Nigerians are actually doing stuff right in that regard, so that we don't even need now to start to import those. Once we now scale up local manpower capability, then we don't need to go import those panels. Your next door neighbor will start manufacturing panels that are quite efficient and sustainable. You're going to remove those meters. You're going to remove those disco thing. You power. And again, I said, if they keep increasing electricity tariffs, it will get to a level at which generating through solar, diesel, or petrol will be cheaper. So Nigerians will just pack up those things. Just as it happened in telecoms, alternatives will be thrown at us, and over time things will readjust itself.
Well, how long is over time? It's a question a number of people will be asking.
That's a multi-million question.
Yeah, I'm sure that Mark, my colleague, would also want to weigh in, but that's and a number of other things we'll discuss when we return from this break. Please stay with us. Well, thanks for staying with us. Some of those information, especially the one ascribed to the Secretary to the Government of the Federation in July, talked about a 23-year, 2020 to 2043 National Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan that identified critical enablers. And it also continues that $2.3 trillion will be required. That's it right there, translating to about 150 billion naira annually. And the private sector and other partners have to provide 56%. Of course, the federal government will provide the balance. This is talking about infrastructure generally. And, Madam, when we talk about infrastructure, the first one that usually comes to mind are roads. How significant, in your opinion, is that fact that the public is now a public-private partnership-enabled infrastructure development plan?
Yeah, in any developed country or developing country, you will know that PPP is, it's a good opportunity for the economy to thrive, to develop other things that needs to be developed, like our infrastructure and things like that. And we're not also an exemption in Nigeria due to all the PPP arrangement that is on, talking about the NMPC fund scheme, talking about the SUKOK, road tax as well. I mean, with all of this coming on board, I see, with a private partnership with the government, I see our roads, there'll be more roads network, there'll be structured, and of course, for us in the safety corridor, more lives will be saved. So it's a welcoming development, and we can't go wrong when you have a private partnership with the government. You can't go wrong.
Well, let me come in here, if I may. Well, let me first of all say Happy New Year in advance to our guests in our Lagos studios and also joining us via Zoom as well. We sincerely hope that it will be a big year for us when it comes to infrastructure. And it's interesting how the conversation has also talked about our attitudes towards the use of this infrastructure. Let me start with Professor Oke. You talked about how a lot of what we use is not really affordable for the average Nigerian. But when we look at the cost of providing this infrastructure, is it so much that it's not, the average Nigerian cannot afford it, or that the earning power of the average Nigerian needs to be increased to match up with the sort of infrastructure which we're looking at developing for the country?
Thank you, Malpe, and Happy New Year in advance to you. Though you've abandoned us in Lagos here, that's not a problem. To answer your question, I think on the issue of national integrated infrastructure development plan, we're still getting it wrong. Fantastic plans on paper. We cannot afford it. It's not sustainable. It's expensive. Nigeria cannot afford $150 billion per annum. It's not realistic. At the end of the day, even if those stuffs are provided, those will definitely not be affordable by the people, because you're going to build roads, go to toll the roads and expect Nigerians to pay. That's okay. That's the problem. So if you borrowing money or you partnering with the private sector, a good idea, then the roads are constructed, then the natural reaction of the funders is to recoup their investment as soon as possible, and that necessarily will mean those roads will be tolled. That's one. But let me now give you a model that we're not celebrating. And I'm not saying it because of my home background as somebody from Ogun State, Abeokuta to be precise. The Amosu model is a fantastic model that should be replicated. Abeokuta was a civil servant area, and the governor decided to focus on one thing: road infrastructure. Massive. Today, Abeokuta is, if not the fastest growing city in Nigeria, it definitely will be one of the fastest growing cities. And subsequent administration, including the current one, had no choice than to continue from where the regime stopped. If we replicate the Amosu model in like 20 states in Nigeria, we can't continue this federated arrangement even for infrastructure. I have issues with it. In the power sector, we are seeing federated grid is not realistic. is not sustainable. We can't be talking of national grid in the 21st century. We can't be talking of national infrastructure master plan. As if federal government does not partner, if federal government does not spend money, we can't have good roads in Lagos, we can't have in Bayelsa, we can't have in Akwa Ibom, we can't have in Ondo. That shouldn't be. We should have decentralized infrastructure master plan. We should have infrastructure master plan that stimulates infrastructure development from the grassroots. Trunk C roads, mud roads, untarred roads, to create access to the rural areas for them to bring their product to the city centers. Some roads wouldn't need asphalt, they wouldn't need to be tarred. Some would just need a bit of grading so that it can create access from the remote village so that they can bring their product to the city centers. Then you don't need to come from Abuja to come and tar the road that leads to my father's village in Alabata. No, though Alabata is now a federal university anyway. The state should be allowed to also stimulate development, infrastructure development from within. We can't federate everything. That nothing happens by way of development, by way of infrastructure development, by way of energy, except it's from Abuja.
Prof, if you can hear me.
Yes.
I was asking if the plans, the fact that a state has a state development plan doesn't mean that the federal government cannot have a national development plan as well, a national infrastructure development plan. They're not mutually exclusive, are they?
I agree with you. What I'm saying, my point is this. The way, these are nothing new, to be honest with you. Years back, I was part of the Vision 2020. All this master plan, all this visioning had been there. Before Vision 2020, there was Vision 2010 or something. We have been visioning. We've been having the master plans. What I'm saying is this. Both for the energy sector, both for roads construction, health, and education, there is a gap in the arrangement that we have. And that is why some people talk about we need to restructure the federal arrangement. Federal government ought not to be overly concerned about roads and infrastructure as if everything must be top-down. Top-down model of development should be done away with. You don't see top-down the model of development in any country. It should be bottom-up. Let's have multiplicity of roads, be it third roads, standard roads, substandard roads at local government, at state levels. Let federal also do its own. At the end of the day, everything is interlinked. We can't say because federal government has these beautiful plans for infrastructure, for road construction, then it's so expensive. Because it's so expensive, it's not affordable. I just gave you an example, the example of Ogun State. None of the state is told, go there and see flyover and see good road networks. And there are also intercity roads that it's growing. Let's have it replicated. Then there's going to be a road that takes another axis to the federal road, talking of Lagos Ibadan. That's how to develop. It cannot be federated arrangements. It has to be decentralized approach to infrastructure growth and development. Let me now repeat myself. I'm not as optimistic as to the so-called integrated national integrated infrastructure development. We cannot be nationalizing or federating developmental plans now. Let's have a decentralized infrastructure plan that makes states and local government critical components and partners in this. So when you are discussing with those private sector people, they can also speak with federal government representative and Ogun State representative and take 2 roads from Ogun Lady to Federal Road Lady. That's how development is done. It is integrated and decentralized, not federated. Because you can't do development top down. It has to be bottom up. And it's done all over the world.
Let me come to Madam Bolanle Edwards now. Madam, you are very big on advocacy, you know, especially for road safety. Interestingly, I had a conversation with the Minister of Transport recently. I found it very interesting that even though, you know, transport is about, you know, the movement of goods and services from one point to the other, oftentimes we do a lot of it by road, but the Ministry of Transport is not encompassing of roads per se. Oftentimes when we think of roads, we're thinking of the Ministry of Works. Well, he told me that they usually come up with the policies for the use of the roads. I imagine that's why the Federal Road Safety Commission is under the Ministry of Transport. And I was asking what policies that they have come up with, and he told me that they'd like Nigerians to embrace the use of bicycles. And I found that quite interesting because looking at our culture and where we currently are, much as that might be a laudable project and much as that might be perhaps a welcome development, especially when you now look at the conversations around removal of fuel subsidy, etc. How far away do you think we'll be from, you know, having such a plan, something that allows people not just walk, which we already have problems with, but also be able to use things like bicycles?
Well, that's laughable, I must say. I don't know how we can survive, you know, cycling in this part of the world. It's good on the papers, but I don't see it as something that is feasible. I mean, when you look at our road network, even as it is already, there is no provision made for cyclists. So if you're thinking of bringing that on board right now, I don't see that happen. Why? Fine, we see people who use bicycle for exercise. Then again, you're asking the Nigerian driver on the road, do they have the respect for road users? Do they have respect for pedestrians? Do they have respect for people who are cycling and all of that? So there's still so much to be done in that area. The Federal Road Corps, FRSC, as it were, you know, they are doing the bit they can in collaboration with other NGOs to making sure that our roads are well used and also making sure that we reduced the deaths on our roads. But looking at you're talking about the use of bicycles. Like I said it's laughable because I look at it and I said, okay, fine. If we're to have a sustainable transportation system, whereby we want to reduce the use of fuel, diesel, so that even we won't have to deplete the atmosphere, as it were. In Nigeria, I don't see that happen. Maybe we should continue to make use of what we have, even though it's expensive as it is. I mean, I was reading on social media yesterday where somebody who was driving a Tesla that uses electricity, the car stopped on Third Mainland Bridge. And I'm asking the question, was it that there was no light for the car to be well charged, or it went out of power, you know, things like this. So we must have the provision made. We must be ready for it. Sustainability is a very key issue. If we must go into all of those things, then we must be ready to be able to sustain them. Thank you very much.
You don't ever see a situation whereby there could be a shift, perhaps spurred by leadership, that this is where we're looking at, and this is something we think that maybe culturally we could begin to imbibe. I mean, isn't it just a matter of changing culture? After all, a lot of people are already beginning to embrace the fitness culture, and we're seeing a lot of that even in Lagos where you are. Don't you think it's something that can happen?
Well, it can. I won't overrule the fact that it can happen. But you see, mindset is a powerful tool. A lot of our people in Nigeria have this fixated mindset. We don't have that growth mindset. I'm not saying everybody does have the fixated mindset, but a lot of people do have the fixed mindset where they're not ready to grow. You know, just a handful of people have the growth mindset whereby they're ready to embrace technology, embrace development, and embrace whatever comes their way. But you know, Nigeria will tell you, I've been driving for the past 30 years. You can't come and tell me that when I'm on the inner street or the inner corridor of my street, I should wear my seatbelt. I haven't died, and I don't think it will kill me. You know, you see a Nigerian and you're asking the question, but why would you, for heaven's sake, put so much overload? You have a car that has should take about 5 people, you have about 8 people sitting in it. It's also mindset. So when you come and you tell them those things that you're trying to educate, it's not that they do not know. They do know. But you know, you're coming to tell them all over again the things they should know naturally. And it tells you, I'm sorry, that's the way it's been done. After all, we're in Nigeria. When we go outside of Nigeria, things are done properly because you're scared of consequences. But when you're back here, it's business as usual. So I'm not saying it won't happen. It can happen. But attitudinal change must start with each and every one of us.
Let me come, excuse me, let me come to Mr. Oyalowo now, who's a political economist. Now, a lot of the reasons why we actually need our infrastructure is really, apart from the fact that it eases movement and eases businesses, it's also supposed to support economic growth. Looking at how we fared in 2021, how much of that would you say that infrastructure we developed or are developing could impact on the economy, especially as we move into 2022 and seek to move past the COVID era, which wreaked a lot of havoc on many economies, particularly that of Nigeria?
Thank you very much, Maokwe. I haven't seen you in like 100 years now, so it's good to see you. Quickly, before I answer your question, I need to correct an impression that the Prof created. Actually, that you have a national development plan does not stop states from doing theirs. If you know how Nigeria is designed, states have areas that belongs to them. In terms of road network, there are state road networks, there are federal, there are local governments. So the fact that federal government has the national development plan does not deter a state from going through with its own state development plan. And I will give you examples. While the federal government today is busy building a lot of roads and rail networks, if you look at some very key states, you look at Kano, you look at Kaduna, you look at Lagos that I am currently speaking from, you see massive road network going. So one does not deter the other. It is because we have some lazy state governors that we think, oh, it's top down. I don't agree with him. The National Development Plan does not stop states from having their own state development projects and plans. It should complement each other, like you rightly put, but one does not stop the other. Now, to answer your question directly to me about how infrastructure can support the economy, a lot. I'll give you an example. We all know how terrible it is to drive between Lagos and Ibadan until the rail was commissioned just recently. And I have seen example, I've seen how the growth of the railway between Lagos and Kano, Lagos and Ibadan has helped in terms of movement. I will also bring you back to using the roads. I was opportune to travel once, it's been a while now, between Lagos to Bomosho. Then I moved from Bomosho to Ilorin, then to Abuja by road. And I saw a lot of things on the road that day. I saw plenty of trucks carrying food, decaying on the road because the truck had either broken down or got into some very bad portion of the road and it cannot move. So infrastructural development is such that, one, if we have good roads, this movement will be easier. But beyond the road, if you have been following the news recently, we have the Kano, Kaduna, even though it's not the standard gauge, the rail has been moving, and I saw people moving food. And I also saw that we have refrigerated coaches now that can move refrigerated food and products from Kano up to Lagos. So this these are one of the ways, or some of the ways, we can develop infrastructure. And also, if we follow the news, also I remember recently there was the massive road development. I say road. What is it? These gas pipelines. So if we are able to conclude on this project, it will reduce the number of trucks moving petroleum product from one state to the other. You and I, we don't even need to start talking about this. Lagos is a massive example of how these plenty trucks can make life difficult for inhabitants of the state, choke movement, and make commuting very difficult project. So if we are able to get this infrastructure right, because I also remember the Minister of Transport talking about the fact that most of the rails will terminate in the port. If these things are done the way they're supposed to be done and done properly, we will have enough, we'll have less destruction on the road. And also in terms of housing, infrastructure, we should know that housing is part of infrastructure. And if we're able to get as many housing on board as we are seeing, because I remember the Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Raji Fashola, commissioning so many houses recently. While I was in Abuja, I even attended one of the ceremonies. These are things that will move people away from poverty, because housing is a basic necessity of humans. It is not a luxury. Housing is a basic need. So these are projects that are being embarked upon that, if properly concluded, will reduce poverty, will make businesses more efficient and move better, because moving goods and services from one point to the other is an essential part of growing the economy. And you will not grow any economy when people cannot move from point A to point B successfully. So I think the plans that are being put on right now by the Ministry of both Works and Housing and Transportation, I think they are very good. I can see on the screen now the Calabar Itu Road that will terminate at Cameroon. So for me, the government is doing what it needs to do. I just hope the citizens complement their effort. We don't sabotage what they are doing. I remember the Prof talking about the fact that people talk about sustainability, but sustainability is not for government, it's for you and I. You don't go into the railways, for instance, now you sit on the train coach and you go and remove the charging port that they have put there for people to charge their phones. You destroy the toilet, you destroy the seat, and then you come and blame the government. We are supposed to be human beings, and we need to act like human beings. So government will do their part. You and I must do our part by ensuring that this infrastructure are sustainable. We don't go and remove manhole covers. We don't steal
that advocacy will certainly go out, and I'm sure that a lot of our viewers are taking note, because we also have a duty to, stop people whom we see trying to deface things that is for the use of everyone. But, one part that it seems to be out of our hands really is security, and we know that the issue of security has had a very big impact on not just the cost of infrastructure but also the use of this infrastructure. A lot of people now, I'm sure they would like to go by road, and I'm sure a lot of people are traveling by road in this season, but a lot of people are doing it in anxiety, and it ought not to be. Even the development of our rail lines, we've also seen that particular one impacted by security development as well. How big a threat do you think this is going into 2022?
While I'm not a security expert, I will say that some of the problems are there. I cannot come here and deny that we don't have security problem. However, I think sometimes they are over exaggerated. I have, like I told you, I just came back from the Obomosho-Ilorin axis just yesterday, and I drove. There was no challenge on the road. Yeah, I know some part of the north, especially the Sokoto, Zamfara, and Kaduna area has been bedeviled recently with so much security problem. And these are natural challenges that we are facing. However, the government is doing its part, and I will tell you how they are doing their part. Recently, I read the number of ammunition being bought, planes, jet fighters and everything. But what are the people also doing? You see, security is not just soldier, police work. It's my job too. If we don't report criminals within us, we keep talking about intelligence gathering. How do you gather intelligence? It is when we see strange movement, strange people in our midst, and we report it. That is how the police, the soldiers, and whoever we call security agency gather intelligence. I keep telling people, the people creating these problems are not spirits. They are human beings. They are in our midst. If we see
that's one
people,
way to look at it, Mr. Oyalo. My apologies for butting in because we need to begin to wrap up very quickly. That's one way to look at it. I mean, talking about security in that regard. But very, very quickly, 30 seconds both ways. Let me begin with you, Prof. In terms of securing infrastructure from such things as vandalism, what's missing? And what do we need to do? Is it that the people are not ready to take ownership of these things, or there is a disconnect somewhere?
There's a disconnect, quite all right, because the model of development, that's why I disagree with Hayobami, the model of development is faulty, because we can't continue to do that. No, even the road safety people will talk about, if not for Trace and LASMA, how much of effectiveness will you see on the side of road safety? Okay. The state must play critical part. They're talking about road shows. I'm not so enthusiastic about roads, because developed countries are taking cars off the roads, creating alternatives. So we have to partner with other actors
subnationals.
To secure subnational. That's how to stimulate.
Madam, very quickly, 30 seconds. Where is the disconnect for you, and what do we need to do to bridge that disconnect?
Yeah, the disconnect for me between the populace, the governments, it's a very wide one. And I would say that because you see that people at times are just adamant. They've made up their minds. And when they say the government, they say, well, I'm not the government, so there's no ownership. So let's begin to hone the things that have been put in place by the government. We have a government.
All right. Well, we have to say thank you again. There's so much to unpack in this conversation, but we just have to let it go at that point. Bolanle Edwards is a road safety awareness advocate. Thank you so much for your time this morning. We've also had Professor Yemioke, who is Professor of Energy and Electricity Law, University of Lagos. Thank you so much for your time today. As well as Ayobami Oyalo, who is a political economist. He joins us virtually, and he's proud to call himself my namesake. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're back after now. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Well, we understand that the president will sign the appropriation bill today. At least that one will be signed. But one that's been unsigned is the one we want to talk about now. And the issues raised, how significant are they? What if the president had signed it? Well, Lanre Arugundade joins us this morning. He's Executive Director, International Press Center, IPC, Nigeria, and a member group of CSOs on sustainable electoral reforms. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Let me just go straight to that same question. What if the president had signed this bill? How significant are these drafting and cross-referencing errors and gaps?
Well, they could still have been corrected. The president could have signed the bill like he did to the PIB bill. And after signing, after it became law, they then requested for some amendments. And that would have been the route that we would have preferred, because we're talking about the law that will govern the elections in 2023. And essentially, we are engaged in a race against time, because we want a situation where this law comes into effect so that it can be used, not just for the 2023 elections, actually, but for the off-cycle elections, Ekiti governorship election, Osun governorship election, and the FCT elections. So the whole idea is that the new innovations in this Electoral Bill 2021 could actually be tested through those elections before we go to the bigger one, which, of course, would be of greater concern to almost everybody in Nigeria. For example, the provision that empowers INEC to use electronic means to transmit results to avoid all these problems of collision, and it gives a background of insecurity. These are very, very key provisions. You have Section 3 of this bill, for example, that also says that money should be released to INEC at least 1 year before the elections. There's also Section 65 or so of this bill that talks about the fact that INEC could take a decision where results are declared under duress or where they believe that there has been a clear violation of the law. So this electoral bill, unlike previous ones, actually guarantees the independence of INEC. That is why, for example, when it comes to electronic transmission of results, it didn't say that it should be subject to any other authority but that of INEC. So looking at all those provisions, we would have preferred a situation where the president will have signed the bill, signed it so that it becomes law, and then we seek these amendments.
Okay.
Now,
just a quick one before we continue. So those issues are there. And then one of the questions that came to my mind is, given the process of lawmaking, and this electoral bill, it's been on for like how many terms now?
Yes.
And to also still raise these issues, and then this particular version of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill has gone through the normal routine: first reading, second reading, public hearing before clause by clause considerations and all of that, and yet you're still able to identify 11 of these errors. How significant are these particular things that you do?
Well, they are significant to the extent that it may be a reason for the president not to assent to the bill. Some reasons have already been adduced, and the National Assembly have said we would meet. We may drop the whole issue of direct primaries because those are the contentious sections.
I know
you are coming to those errors.
The reason I'm asking is...
Because in August 2018...
Sorry, my apologies,
yes.
Mr. Aguru. The reason I'm asking is, how did we miss those ones in the process?
I think it talks about the gaps in capacity when it comes to lawmaking in Nigeria. And I think going forward, these are the areas that we need to address. Because like you said, really, we have in National Assembly, we have committees. These committees also work with experts in different areas. And one would have thought that internally they will have seen some of these errors and get them corrected ab initio. It shouldn't be the responsibility of we in the civil society to identify these errors. So perhaps there are capacity gaps, and I feel that we need to look at legislature, because my understanding of the legislature, from my experience at least with British democracy, where they run the parliamentary system and American system, is that senators or members of House of Representatives, they have a whole retinue of experts that work with them. And I'm sure all of us have seen public hearings, maybe it's an investigation and so on. Okay. The kind of questions that senators ask in those places, they are even tougher than questions that judges would ask. So for me, I think it shows that we have problem of capacity, and our legislatures really need to do their work, very well.
Okay.
So for me, these errors ordinarily should not be there. But why we are coming out to draw their attention to this now is that we do not want it to be a basis for the president not to sign the bill after they might make necessary amendments. Because in 2018, August 2018 precisely, the president did not assent to the electoral bill then because he said there were cross-referencing errors, there were all grammatical errors and so on. So our fear really, and that's why we're saying now that the president has sent the bill back and you are looking at it, before you retransmit it to the president, ensure that these errors are corrected. Okay. And some of them are quite fundamental.
So let's look at some of them. Which ones would you consider quite significant that need to be given due attention? Okay,
so you look at in the way we have arranged it, we look at some of the subheads, and you look at let me mention one of the subheads. So you look at 14.2, for example, where it talks about amendment to election petition. and it was talking about the fact that there must be compliance with Section 134 of the Electoral Act. Meanwhile, Section 134 has nothing to do with election, petitions or amendment or anything like that. The section that ought to have been put there is Section 2885 of the Constitution.
Subsection 5.
Subsection 5 of the Constitution. So if you allow it to go like this, it could be a basis for litigation in future, because you'll be using, a law that has no bearing to reality. And somebody could say that, look, on the basis of this, we have, problems. Then you have some sections where you have repetitions. So if you look at paragraphs 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, for example, paragraphs 4, 5, all of them are essentially repeating, the same things. In some areas, you have, duplication. You have, errors, in references. When you have all these laws, you also have subtitles. So what we did was to just painstakingly identify all those ones, and we do hope that there are no other ones, so that the National Assembly could be well guided in reconsidering this particular bill that, as I've stressed, is very, very important and could really help us to have much more credible elections in 2023.
I see that part of the amendments that you are recommending includes 24 sub 4,
yes,
which talks about conduct and postponement of election in an emergency. That's quite significant, because we've had a case in this country where there was a postponement of election. How significant it is? Talk us through that one.
Well, that is also very, very important, because we recognize the fact that we're going through a whole lot of conflicts. And we also recognize that politicians want to win elections at all costs. And so you might have a situation where crises are deliberately, concocted just to prevent the electoral process from proceeding accordingly. And so we're also saying that, look, we need to look at this section to ensure that in case of emergency, we do not have, an undue, delay. There must be a reasonable time limit within which that election, should, be conducted. Because our elections come with all kinds of things. It comes with all kinds of litigations and the rest of them. And that is why we're actually concerned about the issue of time, really. And for us, what is important, because the president returned this to the National Assembly. It took a whole month for the president to take a decision. That in itself shouldn't have been the case. But we consider that the president has the right to also make consultations, because he is the president of the country, and he should be concerned that whatever electoral law will come out should be the one that is acceptable. But that period was too long. But now it's back. And what we want the National Assembly to do is not to exceed 1 month in getting it back to the president for his assent, so that this can then be the operating law for the elections that will come. The ECOWAS Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance recognizes the importance of timeline when it comes to electoral law. And so it says that electoral law must come into operation at least 6 months before the elections. The same thing, the African Charter on Democracy and Good Governance. So we're looking at these frameworks, and Nigeria is a signatory to these frameworks that I've mentioned, to ensure that we do not put, unnecessary costs in the wheel of our electoral progress.
Well, I would suggest that everyone watching this program right now should, I don't know, this document, I'm sure you have it available.
Yes,
in the media
we try
space.
and make it widely
important,
available.
so that people will understand what the issues are. But do you think this law itself, this bill, as has been proposed, does it in any way significantly take on the issue of electoral violence?
Well, it's that in itself, I think that is very difficult, really. And don't forget that one of the things we've been advocating for, really, is that we should have a separate mechanism for dealing with electoral, violence, because you want the INEC to be the one to, prosecute electoral offenders. INEC does not have its own police to even arrest, talk less of prosecuting. And that is why there has been a case for a kind of, special commission that deals with issues of electoral, violence.
Okay.
Just like you have EFCC, for example, fighting aspects of our corruption. And because of that, EFCC is empowered, it makes use of the police and all that. You would need a separate commission to deal with that because of electoral violence.
So essentially, you are asking for
yeah, we've talked about electoral offences tribunal and so on, because a lot of responsibility, and the chairman of INEC did mention this in his chat with media executives in Lagos, recently, where he said that a lot of burden is put on INEC. For example, voter education, for example.
Voter education.
Exactly. And we have been saying, look, why don't you just take this one and make it the mandate, the sole mandate of National Orientation Agency?
Well, that's a big question there.
It's a big question,
but, the voter education part is what raises this next question that I want to ask. And that is voter apathy that seems to be dwindling on a gradually. Is there any way that you think that this law also, addresses that?
It's difficult for the electoral law to address the issue of voter apathy. What the electoral law can do is to enhance credibility of the electoral process. So we're hopeful, for example, that if people realize that their votes would count, that the results that will come out would not have been manipulated at the collation centers, that violence will not matter. And that's why the good thing about this law, for example, it talks about the fact that where you have elections at polling units, there are, electronic. Don't forget the controversy in the last elections, whether there is a server or there's no server and so on. It will eliminate this. So what it can do actually is to enhance confidence in the electoral process. And we then hope that that in itself would encourage people, because the reasons for voter apathy are many. It's also a reflection of lack of confidence in the electoral process. The fact that we do not have, democratic accountability. People make promises, they do not fulfill them. A general sense that the political class has failed citizens. So people don't really see the reason to vote. And that is, a different ball game, entirely. But for those that would vote, no matter the population, we want a situation whereby the electoral law will ensure that the votes count, and that the whole process itself, it's credible and adequately guarantees the independence of the electoral management body, which is INEC.
Okay. Marco?
Well, I was listening to Mr. Arogunade, and he was saying that, these amendments, these errors which they have noticed should be fixed before it is sent back to the president. Now, this is assuming that it is sent back to the president, right? Why do you think that this bill should be worked on and sent back to the president?
It should be worked on. As I've stated, it's an improvement on the Electoral Act 2010 because of a number of reasons. So this is a major improvement. And because of that, a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of resources have been put into having this particular bill. And it would be too bad if, despite all those investments in terms of time, in terms of resources, we just send it away and then we are back to square one. And we then may have an election in 2023, and even before it,
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Arogunade. The emphasis in my question, if you can hear me, was why it should be sent back to the president.
Well, it should be sent back to the president to ensure that the law comes into effect in good time, before the off-cycle elections of Ekiti and Osun and the other ones. Maybe what you are trying to say is that why can't they just veto the president and pass it, really? It was one of the demands we made in our press statement of December 2, that the way things are, they could actually either veto the president, but you already read about what it will require to do this veto. Two-thirds majority, and of course a lot of politics will come into this. Already there is a lot of talk around the question of direct primaries. So we're saying that, look, if those are the contentious issues, drop them, because there are other provisions in this bill that would enhance the credibility of our electoral process. So they should really, because we need to look at our own political environment, the kind of controversy that it will generate. And we may end up not having a law that would properly guide the next elections. So the way we look at it is that the best option before us now is for them to look at those issues raised by the president, and then also look at the issues raised by the civil society organizations in terms of those errors that we've identified, and then send the bill back to the president within a month.
Well, some of the reasons why the CSOs, which painstakingly did this work, is because of what has happened in the past. The president has rejected Electoral Act Amendment Bill based on grammatical errors and clerical errors. And that's one of the reasons why I imagine that the CSOs have done this much work looking through for those kinds of errors. Now, some people have said, based on what they have seen, the president is reported to have rejected the Electoral Act Amendment Bill a record 5 times. Based on what they have seen and the president's antecedents in rejecting these Electoral Act Amendment bills, they think that perhaps there is no good faith shown in this particular stance by the presidency of wanting to sign the Electoral Act Amendment Bill into law. Why are you confident that, having done this much work, if it is sent back to the president, it will be signed this time around?
Well, so what we're trying to do this time around is for us to ensure that the president does not have any excuse not to sign, this bill. That is why, we're taking this, route to ensure that the proper thing is done. So you already said it. In 2018, it was rejected because of these cross-referencing errors. We've identified them. We've drawn the attention of the National Assembly, and we have said, do the needful. The president, in their response, and some of the spokespersons for the president, have talked about the fact that, the direct primaries, and there are other people who also feel that political parties should have the right. There is, of course, some merit in direct primaries, but for us, that is also not as significant as other provisions. So we are also advising the National Assembly, leave that one aside. So the whole idea really is, let us see what would then be the reason for the president not to assent to this particular bill, given the provisions. And the same president has actually said that he wants to leave a legacy of credible elections. You can't leave that legacy if you do not have an enabling law that allows you to do, the needful. So all we're saying is that at the level of Mr. President, you have to walk the talk. And at the level of the National Assembly, do your duty properly so that people will not say, oh, well, you can't blame the president. How can you, be making all these kind of, errors? That's why the other time I said, actually, some of these errors are embarrassing. Because it happened in 2018. It ought not to have happened. But
maybe we should allow the National Assembly to take this on now. Now that, of course, these things have been pointed out. Because I saw one there, die instead of dies, or dies, I don't know. It's a whole thing. Well, Larry Arugulade, Executive Director, International Press Center, IPC Nigeria, and member group of CSOs on sustainable electoral reforms. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you very much for your time, for your interest in this important topic.
Oh, we certainly are. All right, a number of messages have been sent in. Let's begin with this one by Peter. So, on infrastructure development review in 2021, Umahia Ikotekpene Road is now a gutter. E2 Calabar Road has cut off Cross River State from economic participation, and many I can't name right now. Start with the obvious and let people see.
Well, Festus Akimboyewa says this. He says federal government should be commended for investing massively in our much-needed infrastructure, such as new roads, rail, ports, airport facilities, and housing. But all of these have come at a huge cost. Time, federal government gives our engineers the task to build our infrastructure. Also, state and private sector should be allowed to generate their own electricity and invest in broadband.
Also see your mails, Onyemachi, Nana, Jare, Tiamiyu, and several others. Thank you so much for all of the messages that you've sent in. But then right at this point, well, as we said, this is the last episode in the year. We just want to say thank you for your time and for being a part of Sunrise Daily all through the year 2021. Thank you, and thank you. We do not take your participation for granted. Now, there's this one thought that we have. How about we say, okay, now this is the part of the year. Let's just first of all say thank you. Marco, let's begin with that, right?
Indeed, Ayo, I think that thank you, even if we were to start saying it from the beginning of the program to the end, I don't think it will carry through our gratitude to our viewers who have been fantastic, loyal viewers, contributing their quota every morning, waking up as early as we do and, you know, sending in their messages as well, critiquing in some instances, which makes us better. We thank you. We don't take it for granted at all.
Oh, we should also thank our guests who have made Sunrise Daily what it is all through the year. Some we call at the last minute, some we call, you know, maybe a day or two before. Some we call right when the program is on because another, you know, guest had failed to show up. We say thank you. We do not take your commitment to making Nigeria better by appearing on Sunrise Daily for granted whatsoever. Thank you so much. So now we would like to ask you to do something. And we'll begin with that next year. That will be the first episode of Sunrise Daily next year. Let's know your wishes for yourself and for Nigeria in the year 2022. There are those who have said it's going to be this kind of year or that kind of year. And of course, many people are going to go to the crossover services and all. But what would be your own wishes for yourself? Your family, the ones you love, your office, your corporate organization, your business, and Nigeria in the new year 2022. Markwe?
And indeed, we intend to take them because if indeed you believe that thoughts and words are powerful and what is said is going to make an impact in 2022, then we also say we encourage you to be as positive. Well, we imagine that your wish for Nigeria will be positive as you also wish yourself well as well. But yes, indeed, we intend to, you know, collate these wishes and have them as part of our program as a way of also saying thank you and telling you that you are at the heart of whatever it is that we do here.
The email address is on the screen, has been on the screen, sunrisedaily@channelstv.com. You'll be able to send your mails there and most certainly, as Markwe has said, compile them and begin with them next year. Sounds queer, doesn't it? See you next year. I'm Ayo Makide. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Well, next year is just tomorrow. You have a splendid one, and cheers and best wishes for 2022. I'm Markwe Yusuf.